And now comes the scary part. We're one of a handful of 6 countries that have data from 2 national assessments, so we can look at skill change over time. And for those countries, it shows Canada's on this 45-degree line, and that means that the average skill level didn't change between 1994 and 2003. And we went, say, what? Can't be true. Average years of education went up a whole year in that intervening period. Adult education rates went up, depending on the province, between 10 and 15%. We spent a lot more money on education, yet the average didn't change. What can be going on? And this is the data for Nova Scotia. At the Canada level, people between the ages of 20 and 59 found a way to lose literacy skill, a lot of literacy skill. And people only lose stuff like that if they don't use it. And so what we've come to realize is that a lot of jobs in the Canadian economy don't require literacy skills, and people are losing those skills that we paid so handsomely for through initial education. The case in Nova Scotia and British Columbia are different. They're the only 2 jurisdictions where there was actually skill gain in the intervening period, albeit just a little bit. The gap between the blue and red line is skill gain. And then you get some loss in older adults. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and start talk about the new data. We've computed some, what we think of as economic efficiency measures related to literacy. If you think of literacy as just another economic input, you got a stack of it, you want to make sure it's used because it was expensive to create, and it generates GDP. In Nova Scotia, if you think of all of the skills that Nova Scotian adults possess, you're only using 68.4% of those skills. So you could get a lot richer if you found a way to push that percentage up. The second number is a different utilization rate, and it's of the people who are employed, how much of the skill of those employed people are you using? And that actually falls, so you're only using 60% of the skills of employed people. And the cost of that is going to come clear when I start talking about costs and benefits. And then the third layer is, okay, of the people that are employed in a given occupation or industry, what percentage of them don't have the skills to do their job properly? And for Nova Scotia, that number is 47%. This is probably impossible to read, but I'll tell you what it tells you. Even though you can't read the names, these are the occupations in Nova Scotia that function with over 50% or more of workers without the skill level that HRSDC's Essential Skills Program says they need to do their job well. And that's a lot of occupations. And here on this side are the occupations that have the largest number of people that don't have the skills that HRSDC says they need to do their job. Okay, so we have these profiles of which industries and which occupations in Nova Scotia have what number of people that won't be able to do their job properly, won't be the most productive, given current levels of demand. So then we turn to an analysis of, so what do we do for them? What is it that they can't do? What kind of instruction or help would they need to get to the level demanded by their job? And this chart is a complicated one, but it tells a simple story. We went back to a group of people in the last international assessment in Canada and did a Jack Nicholson on them and said, "We're back." To make this more colorful, the first time they were tested for an hour and a half, and we came back and took a subsample of them and tested them for another 2 hours. But this time, low-skilled people were tested with a battery of clinical reading tests that tested various aspects of oral fluency, decoding, and comprehension skills. Old-fashioned stuff on the mechanics of reading. Our hypothesis was that a lot of people with low skills would have discernible deficits in those component reading skills. And this chart tells us that we were right. What you get when you subject those patterns of strength and weakness on the reading components to a statistical analysis is 4 groups that differ distinctly in what they'd have to learn to get to be fluid and automatic readers. And this is a chart full of words, but I'll tell you what it means. The main message here is, A, that we can divide the low-level learners into 6 groups based on those patterns. The first group are characterized by, or I'm going to use the word dominated by, high school dropout men that have evidence of learning disabilities because their decoding scores are so low. And there's 240,000 of those at the Canada level. And these numbers will become important when we start talking about the fix. A2 and B2 are 2 groups of immigrant women. So those groups are dominated by immigrant women. The first group are immigrant women with no education, so they haven't got literacy in any language. The second group are immigrant women that are educated, but they don't have literacy in English or French. And we got 379,000 of the uneducated immigrant women and 430,000 of the educated immigrant women at the Canada level. They're important because historically they've been denied access to federal language and literacy training programs. And so the fact that they don't have skills is an artifact of public policy.